you from, actually? Because, like, Hanson didn't really give any details outside of that he knew you from the Do Outdoor stuff or the outdoor stuff. Destination Outdoor.
Yeah. So I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland for 25 plus years. And then we moved out of there. And I currently reside in Hanover, Pennsylvania, which is the potato chip capital of the world, as I call it. Like Utz potato chips, not like Snyder's potato chips, all that uh, is made here. But the good news is when I like open my door on a good day, it smells like potato chips, but like it could be worse. Like people live near paper mills and things like that. So if I smell potato chips, it's not that bad.
Gotcha. No, cool. I mean, did you know Hanson before any of this stuff? Because I know he was from the Baltimore. I know saying like, "Oh, you're from the Baltimore area" is akin to us saying, "Oh, you're from the New York area." Did you know so and so?
Yeah.
Like,
No, actually, no, I didn't know him, but I knew Greg obviously from Drive Tribe stuff. But I didn't know when I first met Hanson, I didn't know like I didn't make the connection until like 2.5, 3 days into like a weekend hanging out, and I'm like, wait a second, you do that, and he does that.
yeah. No, yeah, we basically we started just so we could start doing events like that, and it just sort of spiraled into what Shifting Lanes is today. So no, it's definitely been an interesting just the ebbs and flows of what it was because we originally started out as a blog, and then we were doing really well with that. That's how we got the attention of Fate or Drive Tribe, and then right at about that time is when Facebook changed their algorithm to feature pages less, and that just nuked everything. And then we're like, well, this, and we had actually paid into, doing Facebook advertising the right way, but paid for stuff, spent a lot of money, and then the algo changed, and we're like, well, crap. And we're like, okay, well, this YouTube thing is pretty organic. Let's give that a shot. And here we are.
Yeah, in my case, I started doing just writing, like only writing, like you said, blog stuff. So only writing, and then a lot of outlets just dried up, and being a freelancer, not really tied to any sites. So like I had put videos on my own personal YouTube channel, which was at that time just my name. And if I don't know, if I was lucky to hop in the car with like a Formula Drift driver, right, and had like a point of view ride along video, and like I would embed that in an article, and then like go back in time, like, oh, I just didn't care about it being monetized because I didn't have any subscribers because nobody was clicking on my YouTube channel. They were clicking, to see the video, and then maybe if they wanted to make it larger, right, then it kicks them out of the article and actually sends them to YouTube. But it's just something that like spiraled from there, and then now I just it happens to be more lucrative now for me to just have this thing. Like it doesn't even have, I don't have 10,000 subscribers yet, but it's actually more lucrative than anything I was writing.
There you go. I mean, that's the thing with it, man. It's like if you hit a nerve, you hit a nerve, and just goes. Like I have a buddy of mine who was always interested in creating content, but wasn't really sure how to do it. And I was like, well, I'll give you kind of a roadmap to follow, but every channel is different. You got to find that thing that's you. And had his first. He's been doing it for about a year, and he had his first like viral short. I think he actually got over 1 million views on it, and he was like, "Oh wow!" And like you could see, like it went from being kind of a hobby to a wait a minute, and he just cracked 1,000 subs. Like mostly down to that one video. I think it's like 800 or something subs came from that one video alone. But like, no, it's like if you touch a nerve with people out there, you see this all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but you see other channels. They were nothing 2 years ago, and now all of a sudden it's like, whoa, look at this. But with that said, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Shifting Lanes Garage podcast. With me today is Danny from Danny Drives. Give him your warmest of welcomes and be on your best-ish behavior. Danny, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. You gave me the invite quite many
Yeah.
many weeks ago, and We had it on the calendar, so it's not like I was ignoring you for a while or anything like
No,
that.
it's all good.
We just had it pushed far, far out, and then here we are.
Yeah, and just real quick, for the for our viewers and stuff, kind of give us the quick. You went into it a little bit about your background, but real quick, just give us the who you are, what do you do, and where people can find you.
Sure. So my full time gig is I work in finance, but obviously I'm here for my automotive hobby side career. So I've been in the automotive world since, let's say, like summer 2015, and then in that time I was mostly or significantly just writing articles for a lot of outlets. Some big names, for the elevator speech, I've written for CNBC, Auto Trader, The Drive, Super Street Magazine, Tread Magazine. I've had a couple content pieces sit on Jalopnik for a day or so, things like that, and then plenty of other spots as well. But um, you know, with the times changing, a lot of outlets dried up. Um, and I've kind of transitioned to not solely be on YouTube, but it's becoming a more lucrative um, option and outlet for me. But that's kind of why I'm here.
There you go. And I mean, it's funny how life works, right? Um, but holy cow, there it is. Yep. But once again, chat, you will notice we unfortunately do not have Greg with us again this week. This week it's thanks to him being under the weather. So you just get us two tonight. So anything you've been wanting to say about Greg, feel free to leave it in the chat. No, I'm kidding. We wish Greg a speedy recovery, and hopefully he'll be back in 2 weeks. He's going to be on vacation next week, and I'm probably taking the week off next week. Haven't decided. Pay attention to the socials for that one. But Doug, Andrew, Keith, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So walk me through so is your content reviews, events, news, like a little bit of everything? Like, walk us through what you're. I mean, obviously, like we were talking about when we started, your content journey kind of ebbs and flows with the times and the shifting landscape. But what, yeah, your content reviews, events, etc. What do we got?
Sure. So if we're taking it back to the start, back when I started writing, I was really strictly doing like newsy type articles, right? Like just whatever the news of the day, probably spitting out for like outlets like The Drive. I don't know, like 10-ish articles, right, on whatever happened in the news for that day. But now, strictly, just the only things I really write right now are just kind of car reviews. So like whatever the newest model is, I get my own set of press loaners, like Shifting Lanes guys do as well. So I'll write some like pros and cons like reviews is what I've been kind of focusing on, because I'm finding that I'm writing that, and I'm right there in the top 10, on the SEO for every couple vehicles. I'm still getting lucky on that. Obviously, that's very, very the market is quite filled with everybody writing reviews nowadays. But so right now, specifically on the writing side, I'm just focusing on car reviews. And then when I get these cars, when I review them, I get ideas on some videos and some videos to create with them. So for example, I specifically know every vehicle I get, I'm gonna at least do some sort of interior, just walkthrough of the vehicle, because folks just want to, at least what I'm finding with the views that I'm getting is folks will, search whatever vehicle they want in 2024. Let's say I'm a M3 owner, so if they want to go look up 2024 BMW M3 and they type the word interior, right, I'm hoping they kind of get driven to that video. So if that's just one example, and sometimes I'll think of some niche ideas that hopefully me saying these on the podcast don't get stolen from me, but they're not that niche. But like if I get some kind of performance car and I notice that there isn't a video showcasing how to launch the vehicle or launch control or something like that. Like I'll create, maybe I get lucky sometimes, I create like the first video of that certain feature internally in on the specific car. But so that's kind of where you know I use the vehicles I'm getting for writing, and then I'll use them, to kind of supplement over on my YouTube channel, and then it kind of grew from there because like YouTube is, right. It's not monetized until you have 100 subscribers, and I guess along the way, once people were clicking on the video, may be embedded in the articles, and the number kept climbing.
No, that's cool, man. I mean, I guess that kind of that kind of leans into. I mean, as you know, given how long you've been doing it, almost 10 years now, and the fact that right around the same ish amount of time for us. Trying to go back and think, but you tested. I'm guessing you tested a lot of different stuff. Is there any one, two, or however many that stick out as like a? Because I remember one getting our first press card. It's like, wow, I can't believe someone is actually trusting me with this. Like, this is
I
insane.
know,
To
right?
holy crap, I can't believe Mercedes just gave me an EQS or gave us, I should say, because Hanson has the review side of the content. Um, like, what were those cars for you? What was that? Oh wow, car.
Well, I got you. So on for first press car was a Toyota. Was it the CHR? I think it was my first one, and then surprisingly, the second one was actually the vehicle that I now my wife owns, is a Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. So that was probably interesting to get as a second one because that's a fairly cool vehicle. But so those were the first. Those, even though like a Toyota, just that little simple crossover, it's like, wow, they gave me a vehicle, right? But in context of like what is the one that's kind of like was extra special. I don't know if it was extra special because of what it was, because you know it was a C8 Corvette, which is a very nice car, but it was more special in terms of the, like, I felt very awkward out in public because it was like when it first came out, and like I drove it to Target to go pick up something for my wife, and I come out and there's 5 people standing around the car because I parked it, in no man's land. So, obviously press loaner, don't want it to get dinged up. So that's probably the one where I kind of just felt uncomfortable. I had neighbors that have never spoken to me, like, come up and ring my doorbell and ask if they could take photos. It's like a very weird experience having that. So I know that if I ever hit it big, and I might second guess having a Ferrari or something, right? Because then you get that, that feeling, or attention that you didn't actually want with these things. But
Oh, yeah. I mean, see, let me put it this way. I'm not the opposite in the sense that I seek the attention. More of a sense of I just enjoy the car, right? Like, it's the same thing as, like, as chat will tell you. My previous car was a 2015 Mustang that, short version of the story, $29,000 in parts and made 705 at the tire. And it was not a subtle car by any stretch of the imagination, but I didn't care. Like, it wasn't like I was going out for the attention and things like that. And then its replacement, a 2019 Mustang, I'm not one of, I might own 2 Mustangs and be wearing a Mustang hoodie, but it's like, I'm not like a, ooh, GM, yeah, Ford guy. Like, that ain't me. It's just, when I got the first Mustang, it was between that and the C6 Z06. The C6 just happened to be a little out of budget. I ended up with the Mustang, and then I learned about the Coyote. And chat, I won't bore chat with the why again for the 12th stream in a row, but and what those things are capable of. And then it was like, whoa! And when it came time after that car met an untimely, fiery end. To get a new car, it was okay. Let me see if I can get something different or something new or this or that. Or it's like, And I was like, you know what? All the good parts were thankfully spared in the fire. So the engine's fine, supercharger's fine, transmission, drive shaft, the whole drive line's fine. So it's like, well, it's going to cost me about $6,000 to put that onto the new car, as opposed to going another new car and possibly spending another ridiculous amount of money. So like, but like I remember when we had Doug DeMuro's. Greg used to own Doug DeMuro's and Tavarish's old Aston Martin, and that thing, not particularly fast, quick, but not particularly fast. But the way, like, you just driving, the way he made you feel, it wasn't that it was like a "I'm better than you" feeling. It was a like, this is special, because people were like, you know, they you don't see Astons every day, and that sort of a thing. And like, never mind, at the time you could get a Toyota Camry or a V8 Vantage, and they were about the same price used, or the Vantage was used, obviously, but about the same price. So it's like, you're looking like you're the, you know, and it was really, I have the same money as you. I just, you know, didn't have kids and don't need that family boring car. It's pretty interesting.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like when the C8 came out, like what was it, like just under 60K? So yeah, it looked like it was like a McLaren in the Target parking lot. But you know, I'm sure you guys get them too. Like some Lexus SUVs are like $100,000. Nobody bats an eye, right? Like you're checking up boxes. Nobody bats an eye at that out front. But because I had a, you know, obviously it was probably the color as well. It was the rapid blue, you know, bright blue, like look at me blue. So, you know, driving around, you literally see people like turning their heads while they're driving past you.
Yeah, and I mean, the Corvette specifically, it was, you didn't need to be a car person to feel the hype of the new Corvette, because it was such a departure from what Corvettes had always been. And it was sort of, now America's making that sort of Eurofighter that looks like a Eurofighter. It's like, well, what is this thing all about? And they grab attention wherever they go. I got car shows and stuff. Guys will be sitting there, you know, with a ZR1 C7, and then the C8 guy is like, has an exhaust on his car, and everybody's like talking to him about that. It's like, wait a minute, that car's more impressive. Why are you over here? Like, it's just, in a lot of ways, Corvette nailed it with the C8. In a lot of ways, I think they missed the boat, but you know, we've talked about it with one of our other guests. Elliott is a big Corvette guy. And, you know, his whole thing, and I agree to it to an extent, was that they had maxed out the front engine platform. There wasn't really any place for them to go front engine. So the C8 became a thing, and now we have a 1064 horsepower ZR1 that is just, I mean, you want to talk about maxing out a platform, where do you go from there? Like, that thing is just insane.
Yeah, as much as I'd love to have one of those delivered to my, I could only imagine the things that I'm semi complaining about. Right, the attention would be so much worse with a Corvette.
Yeah,
with a wing on.
I mean, well, you know, with the big wing and everything. At least the C8, the regular C8, the Stingray, is pretty subdued.
You know, another vehicle, when I've had a few of them that I like, and that also was probably close as eye catching when it first came out, like, you know, head turning. There's a few of them on the road now, and Hanson, just, I saw you guys had on the channel the new Supra. When I had those probably weren't as head turning and awkward situations in front of parking lots, but I definitely could tell that was getting attention, grabbing, you know, past what what sometimes maybe or may not be comfortable. But
yeah, I mean, well, that's another vehicle that generated a lot of hype. You know, it was return of an iconic nameplate. It was done so in, I don't know the best way to describe it, but like almost controversial fashion. You know, it's like, hey, it's a Supra, but it's a Z4, but it's Supra. And people like latched on, you know, the whole, it's a BMW Supra kind of a thing. You know, whatever it is, it's a sports car that we wouldn't have had without the collaboration. So people just need to get over it. Is really kind of where I ended up on it. But no, like, and then weirdly for me, the car, so like the Mustangs without question garner the most attention, to the point where I was telling my buddies about this Sunday night or Monday night, I forget, not important to the story, but like there's a Wawa near me, and I go to the Wawa to get like when I don't need to go to the full grocery store, whether we need milk or just a quick knick-knack or whatever. And there's a cashier there that I had sat down and talked cars with for probably an hour one night when I was just trying to do that, which I'm totally fine with. If I have nowhere to go, you know, I'm one of those people where I'm always going to sit here. It's like, oh, the younger car generation. It's like, the old hack could just sit here and be like, that's what you drive? Later. Like, nah. So I'm talking with him, and then a couple more visits, talk to another. And now, like, all of a sudden, I have this reputation of being the, like, car wise man at Wawa near me. So, like, the other night, I'm sitting there, and a guy comes up, and I pull up, and, like, everyone always goes when I drive by, because I have my Mustang came with the Attack from Borla as far as an exhaust is concerned, and it's the loudest Mustang you can get exhaust.
Well, I got Attack on my M3, so I'm with you there.
So it's loud. So when I drive by, rev it. It's like, so I pull into the parking spot. It's like, hey man, why didn't you rev it? I go, I'm not in the business of revving my engine cold. I'll give you a little something when I leave. Like, that's no problem. But like, and not for nothing, it's like, if I rev it, the cop 3.5 miles down the road is going to hear me. Like, my car's already get enough attention from the police. Not because it might be from stuff I did when I was younger in my hometown. But at any rate, we're just talking. But like, that's the thing. I pull up and like I said, my new Mustang is basically stock. It's got the Gen 3 Coyote, so it makes a little more power. But it has the exhaust, and it has coilovers, and it has the wheels off of the old Mustang. Because I'm waiting to get tires for the wheels that came on the new one. Because apparently I am now a Mustang wheel collector and have 4 sets of wheels for the S550 Mustang. But like, the car that arguably got more attention, or almost as much, not quite more, but almost, was when I had the C30. Because nobody knew what it was. They were like, what in the hell? Is that some sort of like kit car or body kit for a Focus or a Civic hatch or whatever? I'm like, nah, man, it's a Volvo. And then you just see their eyes go like, a Volvo? And then they're giving me the side eye like, so it's not really a fun car. And then, and when I see that, I go, yeah, but this one's pushing, I think we got it up to 290 at the wheels, horsepower wise, on a stock turbo. So well over 300 at the crank. And then they're like, a Volvo? And like, like, a lot of our chat is made up by Volvo enthusiasts, or we've met or come across them via the Volvo,
or converted them, right?
Well, I mean, where Greg is the Pied Piper of the Volvo content community. Like, where Greg goes, they follow. But like, that was a very interesting car, just because of like, it was a world platform. So it was a Volvo, it was a Ford. They actually built the Ford RS off of that with the Volvo engine and stuff. So there's like direct bolt-on performance parts, even if it's not aftermarket and everything. But I like a V8. Like, it's hard to beat that. But I guess so. You said so. Remind me again. Your wife has the 4Runner, and you have a BMW. You said.
Yeah, so we picked up a 4Runner TRD Pro about 2 years ago for the family hauler, which really just, first it was supposed to be baby hauler. Now we just kind of parade that thing all around town. And my car is a 2012 BMW E92 M3, and it was a daily driver until COVID times, and then my real job, I don't have to go to the office, so now I'm lucky if I drive like 100 miles in a month. So it's really, I work in finance, and it's really a bad financial decision to have this paperweight just basically sitting in my garage. The only times I drive it are really the most pristine weather, and I'm like, I should go out for a drive. Or if I need to go back, take it to the track again. I've taken it to track days, but oddly enough, that was pre-COVID when it was actually a daily driver, and I haven't really taken it to the track since it's kind of been like a garage queen, low mileage vehicle.
Now, is it in the garage just for the mileage sake of it, or are we talking mods beyond the exhaust?
Oh no, it's in the garage because once I once I built my house, I was like, I want to park it in the garage, right? So for even when it was daily driver, I always parked in the garage. But no, I got to exhaust. Most of it is visual visual stuff. I do have Stop Tech trophy brakes on it. Um, Recaro seats. I mean, they're it's mostly visual, but I guess there is some performance, right? If it's holding me for the most part, other than the
Those are a
exhaust.
collector's item now with Recaro.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Because they kind of went bankrupt, I think, a week ago.
That's crazy because they were doing so much stuff with OEMs. Like, I'm gonna put the factory Recaros out of the old car into my new car, um, but you could order the Mustangs with Recaro seats. It's crazy. Like them and who's the wheel company just went file for bankruptcy or something too. I forget the name or what have you, but like, no man. Well, if you're looking for an excuse to get it on the road and put some miles on it and take it to a track, albeit one without corners, September 6th, we are hosting an event called Shift Show at the local drag strip here in Great Meadows, New Jersey. Day one is the Friday night test and tune at Island Dragway, and then we're actually doing a cruise on day two on the Saturday. So if you're available those days for one or both, even better, but one is more than enough. Consider yourself officially invited. And
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll connect and I'll figure out the distance. Now it's a distance thing.
Where'd you say you were in PA?
So I've driven to I do track or have done track days at New Jersey Motorsports Park. So how far is that?
We're
in terms
about
of geography?
that's about 2-ish hours south of us.
Oh dang! So then you'd be a whole nother.
So you would basically you'd get to us by taking Route 80 east. So I don't know what
Is this probably like 3 or 4 then for me maybe because if it's taken me 2 hours and change to get to New Jersey Motorsports Park, uh, I mean it's not the worst I've ever driven. I think the worst
no.
track
I mean
day
I
I've
get
ever driven back
yeah.
is I drove to VIR
Okay.
from my house. That is 5.5 hours like from where I live. And I drove down there for just like a track night event. Like they do it like once a year, and it's like the cheapest way I think to get on VIR. And I was like, I've never been there. Might as well do this. And so I drove 5.5 hours for like what's that? Like an hour of track time, and then I drove 5.5 hours back, and I got like no hotel, no nothing. Hated myself the next morning, or I'm not even sure it was the morning. I probably woke up in the afternoon, but
Yeah, I mean, so we used to. So I've spent a decent amount of time on New Jersey Motorsports Park. Done a decent amount of stuff up at Lime Rock. Did 1 or 2 events at Thompson Speedway in Connecticut. I mean, you probably know test days. Did a bunch up at Monticello, and then even a couple events outside of that. I was actually, I think it was Spec B licensed in the SCCA long before I actually even thought of doing automotive content. That was back in when I was still in my jock phase. But my uncle had a 944 that he decided he wanted to race in that class, and so we both drove it and raced. But man, road course stuff is expensive as hell. Like, it's something I definitely want to do with my car. Like, the Mustang ain't going to be a drag queen. That's why I got a manual, because like if I wanted to just make it a straight line monster, I would have gotten the automatics, because I think if you're basically the automatics with when you were pushing the same level of power that I had are not easily 10-second cars, if not knocking on the nines. So
you'd like halfway between you and I. Well, I guess technically west of you, near the Poconos. There's this group that like a bunch of times a year they do like roll racing on the Pocono
oh really?
NASCAR.
Hmm.
So like what's it like? I think they calculate it as being like third mile drag racing. So you know what's that 1,750 feet or whatever it is. So you could probably, if you just want to you basically do the long straight, and then you got the cool down that's
Yeah.
like the turn of the NASCAR. So it's not like you're gonna be worrying about you're hitting the walls or whatever. You're gonna be, braking the before the turn. I've actually there's sort of living in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. There's some uh, random airports, like very local airports. Maybe could fit some commercial like rich guy's jet or something. And I've actually tried to reach out to a few of them. I was like, hey, I do this. I get these press cars. I'd love to come utilize it on the drag strip to like take it to its max, somewhere safely. And the closest one, actually got back to me, and they're like, they don't want to do it for safety reasons because what if I just drop oil? And their whole thing is like shut down. So I've actually tried to figure out other ways to try to hit top speeds on some of these vehicles, but
Yeah, we got
without having to worry about lights behind you.
yeah, we got lucky because we used to have three drag strips in New Jersey, Atco, Englishtown, and Island, which is the one. And Englishtown, their front their starting line and area of the drag strip they converted into a drift stadium. Atco's went under.
That's where I got taught. That's where I got taught how to drift by a Formula Drift champion. Was that Englishtown?
There you go. Which drift champion?
Oh, Frederick Osbo.
Ah, that's not one of the four names I recognize. It's weird, man. Like, I enjoy drift up. Like, I enjoy the action, and then it's just like when you start to get it. This is for me in like all things. When it starts to become a judged sport, you start to lose me. Whether it be auto sport or motorsports, the Olympics are on now, right? Like, it's like, okay, I have no idea why that was better than that, but somehow it was magnitudes better than that. Like, but I appreciate the art of it, and like when you're in an area where you're able to do it safely. I mean, driving sideways is just about the most fun you can have with your pants on. So, no, like,
Since we're talking New Jersey, one of the tracks that I covered drifting professionally, photos, and I've wrote articles about it, that no longer is a track, I don't think, is Wall, New Jersey.
yeah, Steve in chat knows. I know of it. I don't remember what exactly was going on with it. I know it was up. Steve could shed a little more light on that, but like when I was a kid, we actually went and saw the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series at Flemington Speedway, which is now a shopping mall or a collection of like one of those fancy outdoor-ish shopping malls where instead of being like the halls are outside. They have a nice little section for where the start finish line used to be, but that was a cool track because it was basically a square. So it was like, it wasn't an oval, it wasn't a circle. It was kind of like if you took Indy and just kind of condensed it to being a square. But they actually ended up having, I don't know if they pushed it back or I remember they had like remember the early days of safer barriers where it was just a foam block instead of like the actual thing.
Yeah, it did nothing.
That's what
That just bounced out of the way as soon as they hit it.
or it would just obliterate into confetti, and you would have like take hours for it to get, or not hours, but it would take forever to get cleaned up. Yeah, Steve, Wall Racetrack. It's down in your part of New Jersey. What are the details on that right now? But yeah, but it was actually one of the fastest short tracks in the Northeast, and like so many tracks, combination of a dip in demand and urban sprawl killed it, which is a shame.
I feel like before our time, there were so many more dirt tracks. Like, because like I got a buddy who used to be my boss. He's kind of a mentor in life still, but he lives, just somewhere in Maryland that like you never would have heard of a track in Maryland, and he like showed me like old newspaper images of this is an aerial footage of this racetrack, and then like this is his house now, and the only thing that remains is the tree line, and it's like a no-name track. I don't even remember what the name of the track was, but it's there was a track there where like now a subdivision is. I mean, you see it all the time. You see these articles sometimes where you see the racetrack slowly getting destroyed, and like houses, the grids of houses start to come in.
Yeah.
But in the case of my buddy, like you literally can see the tree line circle of whatever was, previously a track there, or clearly a circle track. But
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, we've talked about the slow decline of tracks and stuff. Like, you see it, and it was brought. A lot of it was brought to attention by like Cletus and the stuff like he's going through with his track, and Brady's in Motorsports Park right next to.
Currently underwater.
Yeah, well, you saw he took the jet boat down the drag strip, down the 8th.
Yeah. I gotta say, so I mean, obviously he's a very popular car YouTuber. I loved probably more than any of the crazy stuff that he does. I love just watching him build the racetrack up. Like,
dude, that was so cool.
Some of the coolest content, like hiring some crew to redo the lights or like dig a trench. Like it's stuff that's needed and has nothing to do with cars other than it's a racetrack. But that was more interesting content.
I mean, that style of content I've come to like really enjoy lately. Like one of the channels I watch pretty regularly is Matt Carricker's channel. It started when he did this abandoned mansion that sat for 20 years unfinished, and he restored that, built it. Now he's got the fucking resort and stuff. Like it's just like that. I was like, I guess I am 40 because I'm into that stuff and World War II history now. Go figure. But no, but his whole deal with like they literally took the track and put it out of town so it wouldn't bother anyone, and now the town is encroaching on it, and like a lot of these tracks are facing these small time tracks are going to face similar, which is a shame because like on the one hand, don't race on the street. On the other hand, if you keep getting your track, if the track was taken away by whether it be urban sprawl or whatever reason, it's like, what are we supposed to do as enthusiasts? Like, we don't all have the money to make a, 4-hour drive to do a points race up in northern New Jersey and drive 4 hours back, right? Like, not everybody's as lucky as we are. I have a track within 15 minutes of my house, and yet there are still
I don't have that.
There are still morons that will go in the town next to mine and they street race. Like,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like I got New Jersey Motorsports Park. What's that? 2.5 from me. If I did some kind of roll racing at Pocono, that's like 3 hours. I think Summit Point, which I've been to, is like southwest 2.5. So it's all like 2.5, 3 hours circle around here. So no matter what, it's a whole day or half a day, in commuting to get to some sort of track event. But
yeah, and that's.
I'm jealous when I drive to New Jersey Motorsports Park. What's that? Millville.
Yeah.
A little town there. I'm jealous of the kids when I drive into town and you have this right here.
No, I mean that's the thing. It's a lot of people don't know what they have, and like I said, these kids mostly kids who are street racing they don't know any better. I mean, we all did dumb shit when we were kids, right? Like when I was in college, it just so happened that next to the baseball field was a parking lot. And the parking lot was flat and long enough to where you could do 8th mile stuff, especially in the cars we had, which I think the fastest one had maybe 400 horsepower. It was back in the early 2000s, too, when 400 horsepower was actually impressive. But and we'd do 8th mile stuff there. And, the security guard would come by, give us the side eye. And that was our thing to know. It's like, all right, we should wrap this up before the actual cops show up. But not having an outlet, and it stinks. Yeah, so I'm about 3/4 of the way north of New Jersey from Millville, if you look at it from a map. So yeah, I mean, here's the point. I mean, I wanted to extend it, say, hey, if you want to come, great. If you can't, no big deal. Just extend it because from what I understand, I was expecting 10 to 12 dudes. Apparently we're getting 50 for the drag racing and another 25, 30 for the drive, which is more than I ever thought because I was
52 lanes isn't that bad though. You'll be.
Oh, it's not even. It's just more the volume of people. It's I didn't expect anyone when I put this together. It was just to give back to our supporters, Like, hey, we've been talking about doing a meetup for years now. I've been kind of dragging my feet slash, real world. I shouldn't say real world, but like my day to day kept getting in the way with shit. Same thing for like Greg and what have you. But I was like, all right, no, we're doing it. And like I said, it's been pretty nuts. I'll shoot you the details. It's pretty informal. If you can, great. If not, like I said, it's not the end of the world. Steve goes when you were talking about the Wall racetrack, Wall Stadium. Big man energy. Fully recommend the Turkey Derby on Thanksgiving weekend. So apparently it's still open. So that's good.
Well, so last time I was there professionally, I covered Formula Drift probably, I don't know, three or 4 years ago there. Whenever the last time they actually went there. And, they got the circle barriers in the center for us photographers, media folks to like hide in, K-rails. So they go sideways at 90, they hit the K-rail, they don't hit us. And you have to go between there. You think of like a figure eight such setup is how they set up that track, and you have to go between the points. And there's just like chunks of the track that just like are broken, and these cars have to come through there. And it was probably one of the more broken tracks. Probably why I don't go there anymore. So I don't know if they have fixed it since then, but
yeah. Well, that's one of the weird things is like a lot of people like, oh, you're from Jersey, so you must go to XYZ all the time, and I'm like, I gotta be honest, I go west and north more than I go east and south. So like New York City, haven't been there in like 10 years. I used to go down into almost just outside Atlantic City or across the bay from Atlantic City every year on a golf trip, but we don't do that anymore. So like,
I haven't been to Atlantic City since Red Bull Global Rallycross was a thing.
So well, here's the thing. I've up until last year, I'd been going to. It's at Galloway, New Jersey. It's Seaview. It's a awesome golf course for those who are inclined. But, and you can literally across the bay see the skyline for Atlantic City. I've been going there since probably 2010, and I set foot in Atlantic City exactly none of the times I went down there. I mean, granted, golfers are degenerates in general, so usually it would be like, so we could go to Atlantic City and gamble, or we could just have a poker game right here, right? But like, I mean, I went down there for the golf and the hangout and for like the food. Like, there's some really good restaurants, like really good and everything. But no, man. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to look at these pictures and see. Oh, okay. Oh, all right. I kind of see it. Yeah. Fair enough. And what the hell's that little thing? All right. And anyway, well, this is kind of a, since we brought up Doug goes, it's illegal in Pennsylvania to race by yourself. Ask me how I know. Are any of your cars fast enough to really draw the attention of the police, Doug? I mean that with all the respect in the world. Doug is one of our biggest supporters. And he's that typical car guy who has a car and picked up another car and then another car. And I think, what are you up to, Doug? Like 15 to 20 cars at this point? Okay, he had it at GT at the time. But no, I mean, there's a couple roads by me that are decent for having fun in. But, and like I said, when I was younger, I used to be kind of an asshole. There could be an argument that there's that part of that still remains. I don't think we ever outgrow that. Just 12. All right, Doug. Maybe if I can't even go there.
I've only owned two, well, other than cars, obviously, for my wife, but like cars that are mine, I've only owned two cars. And I don't, because of what we do, I don't really, I don't want to then buy another car, right? And the times that I'm not driving my wife's car around town because it's, an SUV, I'm going to be driving some Fresloner for the current time being, as long as this, this sort of thing I have going keeps going. So I don't really want to purchase another vehicle because
you don't really have to.
It's just going to be another paperweight for me. But
yeah, that's you echo what Hansen says a lot because he's got the Veloster N, and he just doesn't drive it as much as he wants. And it's like, I mean, I could with what you know, the review side of things. I mean, I did do that for a minute, so I get it. It stinks because like I'm sure 90% of the time your BMW is more fun and entertaining than what you're driving. And I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot to say
Yeah, I
something
mean
negative.
they're not all C8s, right? They're not all C8s.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
like well, they're not
you
they're
know, they're
not
not all
all
C8 Supras or whatever.
they're not all E92 M3s is what I'm kind of saying. You know what I mean? Not a fan of manuals, huh?
No, man, I was I grew up all the vehicles that I grew up learning driver's ed. Like with my parents, I learned how to drive in a Chevy Impala. So it was an '04 Chevy Impala. And then my mom upgraded sometime around my senior year to an '07 Chevy Impala. And they were all automatics. So I didn't have my own car. So I kind of just drove my parents' vehicle. And then my dad had Chevy S10 pickup most of my driving life, and so I never no family friends, nobody in my like circle had a manual vehicle for me to even learn to fail. Like the first time I drove a manual was a Formula Drift. Well, no, that's a lie. It was off-roading, but then first time like driving as a truck though. First time I ever drove a manual car, a Formula Drift champion taught me how to drift in like 20 minutes. So I'm fortunate that I was able to pick it up fast, but it just was never a thing that I was able to do, because if you don't have access to a manual car, you obviously
Yeah.
can't
No,
you can't learn how to manual.
nah.
But I guess I checked the box. I'm going to be that one, probably the automotive journalist or creator in the whole industry that's like, don't want that. You can go in the manual. I'll take that automatic over there.
I'm not one to tell you how to run your company, but that sounds like a YouTube short that will do pretty well just from the trolley side of the nature of the internet. Nah, man. I mean, like Elliott, just busting chops. Like Elliott Manning in chat, like just busting chops. Like, look, if my circumstances were different, I'd probably be similar. But to give you an idea, my dad taught me how to drive a manual at 14 years old in an Isuzu Trooper. And then I actually took my driving test in a manual. Like the instructor literally looked at me. He's like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" To be like, "I've been doing this a while." And then he like looked at me side-eyed like, "Bro, you're 17. What are you talking about? You've only been driving for a year." Like some snot-nosed kid, right? And then literally every car I've ever owned has had 3 pedals. And ranging from my first 2 cars, which were the Focus ZX 3s, to a Lexus IS 300 in a manual, which I wish I had kind of held on to because those things are going for dumb money at the moment. Like technically, I don't think like a low mileage example are just they're really good, and in my opinion, the best gauge cluster, Speedo, Taco, the whole nine that has ever been made. And then from there, since you seem to be a fan of the BMWs, I had an E46 M3, but arguably the worst example of an E46 M3 in the entire United States. High mileage car, got it on the cheap, didn't really know BMWs, so I took the word. Basically what we thought was a rear main seal kind of leaking oil turned out to be the Vanos. And as anyone who knows BMWs, Vanos is a 4-letter word. And then finally got it up. The engine was singing, everything was going well, and then the left front brake caliper seized. I'm like, I am done with this car. Sold it to a kid who I think turned it into a race car, which is really what I should have done with it. I should have taken the S54 out and put either a newer motor in or just done the dumb thing that I know Doug will absolutely hate, but just put an LS in it. And because it wasn't a collector, like the like paint or whatever was coming off the kidney grills. Like it was just a rough car that I was gonna eventually. I had budgeted to restore, not to have problem after problem after problem. And then the Volvo and then now the Mustangs are all manual. And like I said, and this goes back a while in chat. Anthony said, you admitting a manual or automatics are better? Not better, faster. There's a difference. Faster isn't better, especially when we're talking daily drivers. You know, sure, it's good for the bar room measuring contest, but
Oh yeah, I have no problem driving. Like when I get invited to do something,
no,
yeah,
like
on a racetrack or something. Like that's pretty much where the only times I've driven manuals that I cared to is on a racetrack setting. I have no problem in those situations. Oh, I see Elliott's comment now. Yeah, they invite me, and if there has not been an alternative, so I've driven the manual, but if there was a hey, this line can go to the manuals and this line can go to automatics, I'll go take more laps because everybody will be in the manual line, right?
right. And at the end of the day, content is content, right? Like if you
Right.
know, and not for nothing, to Elliott's comment there, I know in a lot of the events I went to, um, there were people there who had no business even being around the manual. I tell this story all the time. We went to a C7 Grand Sport reveal event at New Jersey Motorsports Park, and we were doing a lead follow. And these uh, two individuals happened to be female. Not that that part of the story even comes close to mattering, but they were a lifestyle blog. So like,
Yeah.
no,
Problem with lead follow is the slowest driver is how slow you're
and
going.
guess who wanted to go 60 miles an hour around the whole entire freaking track? You know, the rest of us are like, why is
Yep.
this so slow? And then it's like these, and then eventually one of the instructors is like, hey, we have like a cruise event on public roads that you're going to be a little more well suited for. But for those who want to do the performance side of it, go away. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but I mean, look at it this way. Like, as I get older, if you would ask 30-year-old Chad, like, you know, what kind manual? It's not that hard. Just drive a manual. You're fine. You know, at the time I was actually commuting 45 minutes to an hour and a half one way in a in my IS 300. But now, if I had that commute, 100% getting like an F-150 or a truck, and it's absolutely going to be an automatic because
Like I just know like commuting, like the most horrible commuting that I've done in my life for like my day job, driving in the Baltimore City, to the inner harbor basically, and
oh yeah,
like I just know, like I know like the stop and go that I would do for like 2.5 hours. Like I don't know why anybody would want to drive a manual in that, and that's the daily drive in that situation. I completely understand weekend car,
mm-hmm.
track toy. That's perfectly, I completely see what you're doing there. But if you're gonna daily to like your day job in the middle of the city, going 2 miles an hour and maybe missing multiple, green lights, I don't know why you'd want to do that.
No, I mean um, I totally get that because like you don't want like a heavy clutch in traffic just kind of sucks. You know, and I'll freely admit that. And like at the end of the day, we are not. Like I said, I have the last 15 years of my life. I have been incredibly lucky to where my commute was maybe 2 miles round trip. You know, and going to work, I could literally just put it in neutral and coast there. Uh, and it's one of those things, right? Like at a certain point, like we all have to be adults. Like, and if you have a long commute and like say you drive a manual and you're miserable from stop and go traffic by the time you get to work, even if you love your job, it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. It just isn't. So like I get it. Like I said, I actually so when my silver Mustang caught fire and we assessed the damage, two things ran through my head. Well, three things, but the first one is okay, we can put a roll cage in this car and it'll be fine. Because the fire was actually very isolated to just the battery tray. And we could put a roll cage in it and therefore like the compromised elements of the frame would be reinforced, supported, right? Like put a full cage in it. And I actually thought about doing it. It's like, okay, I could put a built 6R80 in here and make a drag and drive car out of it. And then I got the quote to do a full cage. And I was like, okay, we're not going to do that. And that's when I started exploring like other platforms And it was like, yeah, but the cheapest way to get back to 700 horsepower is just another car just newer, and the Gen. It's crazy to me that the when you look at a Gen 2 Coyote and you look at a Gen 3 Coyote, you think the only major difference is like the intake manifold, slightly different heads, and the direct injection. But then you start looking at it and it's like, oh, higher compression, and it actually has a few cc larger displacement. It's actually over 5 liters a little bit, whereas the first and second gen Coyotes are under, which, for reasons known only to my brain, was what I was like, this is insane. This is crazy. Like, but no, I mean, with all that extra stuff, I mean, we are actually hoping that the new car will be in the 750 range, which is insane. But that also means, man, I only need 50 more horsepower to get to 800. Like, which is totally, I mean, 700 is impractical. Like, I have 325.
Hey, in my articles, usually if I ever quote like horsepower as being like a pro in any department, I always like be like, anything over 300 on the road is overkill.
Yeah.
Anything over 300, you're just talking shit at Cars and Coffee.
Yeah, no.
Or unless you're.
I mean, Greg and I have come to, like, we've always said like 400 is like kind of the perfect amount for like having. I mean, 300 is perfect in the sense that it's like you can.
Well, I say 300 because I have 400, and I know having 400 with the M3, if I put my foot down too long, I'm going to jail. So then I lopped off 100, and then that's where I arrive at 300 for my number.
I mean, let me put it this way: long enough road, and you keep your foot in it long enough, 150 horsepower will get you in jail. So like, no, but I've always mentioned that, and like, Chad will tell you, my dream build, if like you were to drop an unlimited budget into my lap, I would have a Datsun 510 with a Roadster Shop chassis, a pissed off naturally aspirated K25, make it 360-ish naturally aspirated horsepower, and just go have fun. Like a Datsun 510, like that would be ultimate canyon car, right? Like, because that car, you need to be in the revs in that engine to go, right? But yeah, I don't have a spare $150,000 to make that work, so here we are. But no, like, so it was one of those things where I tried with every car purchase to knock off like a car phase, right? Like a phase of my life where I was into a certain specific type of cars. So when I had the IS300, I was really into the sports sedans. And I really liked the idea of M3 killers. Not that the IS300 ever was. I mean, they did make a IS430 concept and then never made it in production because early Lexus. But, then I got the M3. And then I had a hot hatch phase, and that was the Volvo. And then I was like, well, I always wanted a way too powerful, just nasty, pissed off. The goal is a 10-second manual car, and always has been with the Mustangs, and that's where that came in. And well, to go 10 seconds, you need horsepower, and I quickly learned that, especially at the track we go to, it's 10 seconds is going to be, well, the second I go, if I were to ever lucky enough to go a 10.9, they're going to meet me at the end of the cool down and be like, okay, that was awesome. This car is no longer allowed down the track. Even though I think 10.5 is the cutoff for a cage now, because things like the Demon 170, every Tesla under the sun can go at least an 11, if not a 10. But it is what it is. But that was the goal with that. Like, I have this opportunity in front of me, afforded me by doing this sort of stuff, content and what have you. Might as well check boxes. I don't know what the next box is going to be, but hopefully I don't have to worry about that for another 5 years. And like the Mustang, I can finally get the Mustang. Like, I have had it, again, something Chad is probably sick of hearing at this point. I've had a full carbon fiber roof for an S550 Mustang in my garage for almost 2 years now. That was going to be on my car this summer, and then, well, fate intervened.
in my case, I don't really know what I like. Obviously, I call it my paperweight, and if I chose to get rid of it because it's like 75,000
Okay.
miles and not done rod bearings
I
for
was gonna
anybody
say.
who.
I was gonna say you're like knocking on the
So
door
if
for
I'm
rod
approaching
bearings.
closer to 100,000, like might like just be like I have holiness upon me and nothing has happened to me, so I'm like just gonna get rid of it. I feel like I would either get a R35 GTR, which I almost sold or almost sold it for to get one of those like before COVID, um, or like some Porsche 911, just whatever one is in my price range that I could figure out.
No, I mean the GTR is a shit ton of car. Um,
There's a guy. So on my route to Mitsumi, I drive past it anytime I need to go to this McDonald's and I just look over and have that if I like wanted to, but I don't want to because then it's just gonna sit. But it's one of those things where like in your case, like you can go check the next box if you wanted to, but sometimes being fortunate to you could do that is sometimes enough, right? Like you don't have to go do that. I'm either muted or you're muted.
I'm 100% muted. Totally forgot. It has a big red light to let me know my microphone's on, and I do that, make that mistake every show. Um, and I totally lost my train of thought. In your line of work, the way you do, you get a new press car every week, every other week, whatever the frequency is. So like you get to scratch a lot of itches just because someone will, hey, make content with this, right? Like,
Yep.
you're good at what you do, make content with this. So like that, like, and that was one of the things. Um, like I said, like when I was doing reviews, I was fortunate enough to get drive a Raptor, drive a Trackhawk, drive a whole manner of different Challengers, etc. Arguably one of my favorite cars that I ever got as a presser, and this is going to sound crazy. It's also where the inspiration for the carbon fiber roof came from. Was the RCF, the Lexus RCF. It's big, it's heavy, it's a combination of like 2 to 3 different cars. But I really enjoyed my time with that to the point where I was looking at.
Oh, I like RCF. You get a little 5 liter V8 in those things still, or let me
I mean, well,
spit
I
now.
mean, we're not getting into my level of nerdery. That the 2UR V8 is one of the best. I would make an argument that it's the best Japanese V8 ever made. It's just such a good engine. It loves revs. It's very similar in that respect. Obviously, displacement too, but to the way a Coyote makes power, and that is just keep your foot in it, and as the revs increase, the power increases, and that's can't say that about a lot of V8s, but it is such a good engine. It makes a great noise. I was actually looking at RCFs seriously before I got the new Mustang until I found out that there's literally like one boost option, and it's a centrifugal supercharger, which is fine. That was what's on my old car. That's what's going on my new car. Centrifugals are phenomenal in the way they can make power, and they keep the car enjoyable around town. Because if you've driven cars with a positive displacement blower, they're on. Once you hit, they're just on. And then turbos, you're either lagging or modern turbos not so much, but if I got that car, I wanted to either go with a twin turbo setup or a positive displacement supercharger, and they didn't make it. And as unpractical a decision as it was, that was the reason I didn't go with it. Like that's just it tells you the stage of life I am. I mean, no kids, not really. If I have a car to do normal stuff in. If there's say snow on the ground, it's. But I like I said, I came close to that because that anything with a 2UR like the ISFs, the new IS 500s, that engine is just so good. I mean, there are some issues with coolant leaking in the valley of the V8. But other than that, I mean, it's a Lexus engine. Pretty hard to. They do a good job. Let me put it this: they do a pretty dang good job of making that stuff reliable. And
Yeah.
to anyone who wants to correct me, show me the Toyota with a 2UR in it, and I'll gladly take that back. But that's the engine I always thought, and I understand why it had to be BMW and stuff. I'm not shitting on the Supra, but that's the engine I always thought that they should have put in the Supra, the new one. I don't know if it would fit in Z4 architecture because, well, dual overhead cam V8s are thick.
Oh, didn't they just release some like old I don't know, it was like a case study vehicle, I guess, for BMW where they shoved like a V12 in a Z4 back in the day or something. Just took it out of the vault.
I just did a short on that.
Yeah, they like took it out of the vault to,
that was
these OEMs do that all the time. They were like, "Hey, look what we didn't do back in 20 years ago that you actually would have bought." But here it is now.
Well, that was actually BMW had no intention of making that until that Auto Zeitung or something ridiculously German approached them and said, "Hey, we have this harebrained idea," and they just kind of ran with it. But from what I remember, that had packaging issues, and apparently the ECU was trash, and they could only drive it for 15 minutes before the ECU overheated on that car. But yeah, I mean, but it also goes back into like Greg and I have this conversation quite often. Is if you take like those 06, 08 V8 Vantages, and we've always that's probably another dream build of mine is to take one of those, get rid of the AJ, and drop a Coyote in. But I don't know if it'll fit because Coyotes are huge. They're the cylinder heads, I'm not kidding, are like that wide. Like they're massive, but that's the secret sauce that makes Coyotes powers. They have one of the best flowing cylinder heads of any modern V8. And Greg's point is always like they shoved in, well, they made a V12 version of it, so clearly it would fit. Yes.
Have you seen the engine bay of the V12 one? It's like he had the V8 one, so you obviously saw that. You can hug it. You could put your hands in there, but that V12 one, it's like nothing. Like it's just, it's almost like looking at a table. It's completely covered, like barely fitting.
And like that's like, but like back to the point, like you heard. I don't know if you went to the same event Hansen did with the Supra and the guys from Japan or what have you, where effectively they were saying, no, for it to be a Supra, it has to have a straight six. Which part of me understands because I'm the same person that says the new Charger isn't a Charger because there's no muscle to it. There's no V8, right?
That's fine. We can accept that answer and then just tell them to go make another car. They can call it whatever the heck they want and put the V8 in it.
Yeah. Well, they sort of did that with the LC, right? Like, but like, on the flip side of things, the other JDM classic revival cars, the R35 GTR, that wasn't a straight six. The NSX, that was a twin turbo V6 with hybridization. Like I think if they had, correct me if I'm wrong, but the new Supra is not an overly large vehicle. And 460 horsepower and a high revving 7,700 RPM V8. Man, that would have been a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. Like when I gotta get in them, the seat only goes back. I'm over 6 foot. I'm like 6'6". So
okay.
When I fit in these cars, it's kind of tight. There's a reason, like, I don't, like, I would love to own, like, an Alfa Romeo 4C, but there's a reason why I don't go for those. Like, I always wanted, like, a Lotus Exige. I don't think I would even fit, like, a leg in there.
Yeah, well, did you ever see Shaq's Lamborghini Gallardo?
No, yes, no. Like, I remember seeing it, but, like, I know he has a custom, well, obviously it's Shaq, right? I know he like is basically in the back of like in the engine or something
They
like that.
actually,
Like the seat is basically.
I forget the exact amount. They actually lengthened the chassis. It is longer than a normal Gallardo, so he could fit in it.
And I'm thinking about another car of his. They like basically put the seat in the back. Like the
Yeah. Oh,
the floor rails are basically in the back seat, but obviously there's no back seat in a Lamborghini. But
um, here it is. And the funny thing is, like, there's no great pictures for it. Hey, my video on it is the first thing that comes up on Google. Go me. Um,
at SEO,
let's see here. So, oh crap! I just. There we go. Open in. There we go. And zoom. But like, for Christ's sake.
while you're doing that, another V12. I know there's like one in a vault there. BMW put, I think it's the McLaren F1 V12. I guess they just had one extra. Put it in an X5. I remember seeing that. So obviously an SUV is pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, BMW.
You know, it's a small SUV by standards now.
If you go back and you look at like BMW's history with like engines, it's actually, all like, bearings and Vanos and all that, like kidding around aside. The fact that they, we need a straight six. What do we do? Just cut a V12 in half. Fantastic. Print it. Okay, so the M3 needs a 4-cylinder. What do we do? Just take 2 cylinders off of the straight six, and all like, and the fact that the amount of mileage they got out of that, what is it? The E39 M5 V8, and how long that V8 in various different trims lived, is pretty impressive. They actually, what was it? The 8 series, the original 8 series, was supposed to get like the M version was originally going to get effectively the F1's V12. But
yeah, I remember seeing that too. I remember seeing some kind of like pre-production car of that, and somehow I think the doors were made out of 1990s carbon fiber. So like those OEMs didn't know how to paint carbon fiber yet, I guess. So then like the paint on the body didn't match the paint on the carbon fiber. So like it was almost like a subtle different tone. I think it was the orange car, if I'm like whatever this pre-production M8 that like actually was created, that was in a vault somewhere. I remember seeing something where like, obviously we'd probably like the carbon fiber to be like raw or at least glossed over. And you see it, but in this case they didn't. And like some OEMs will paint their carbon fiber. Like I think the C7 Corvette's hood is carbon fiber, but it's painted obviously for basically all the C7s. So in that, you wouldn't tell the difference in when the C7 came out. But in 1990 whatever, when they were trying to make a M8, or was it 80s maybe? The carbon fiber door, or the door doesn't match like the rest of the body, and it's the same color. Like if you spray orange, or whatever the spray color code is, they sprayed it on the, I guess, aluminum or metal or steel, and it shows up as one color. You spray it on carbon fiber, and I guess it just didn't match.
So I'm fortunate enough, I got to be friends with. We actually went to the same high school, but like with the Mustang, I got to be friends with them. The guys who did the build on the Mustang. One of them's the mechanic, and the other one's the paint and body guy at this Blue Sky Performance and Restoration. An absolutely incredible shop. Like they've had SEMA award-winning cars. Their work. They just finished putting an LS and an MG. Like they're doing a. I don't know if I could. I can't really share too many details about it, but basically they have an old I want to say mid-engine Fiat that they're putting a Subaru engine in and a Roadster shop chassis and widening it and lengthening. They're incredible craftsmen, but like talking to Jesse, the painter side of things, and how like the same color isn't the same color on plastic as it is on steel, as it is on aluminum, as it is on carbon fiber. Just those chemical reactions change, and I don't know. For me, if it's carbon fiber,
because everything breathes. Like,
yeah.
we think of like us being alive. We obviously breathe, but like items, things breathe. Like spray paint something, there's like there's like something that goes on. There's chemical reactions that happen, right? There's gases that come off of the things, and obviously something is different than a hard metal versus carbon fiber being plastic, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, I think aluminum is actually in some ways porous, so the way it absorbs things is, and heat and all this other stuff. But before we get too far, yeah, this is Shaq's Gallardo. You could just tell by looking at the door that it's been extended. Like, it's a pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it almost looks like an Aventador door,
Like how big it is. Extended. But it's like he bought two Gallardos, and then I think it was like a $300,000. Like, I think all in it was like $300,000 or $400,000 for a Gallardo, which, but God bless you, because it ain't gonna. He had it.
That's like Aventador money, basically.
Yeah,
well, no, I think
you can't fit in an Aventador. Like it's
right.
It's pretty crazy, and I think this was before they actually figured out just how much power you could throw through these those Lambo V10s, which is a lot. The stock blocks on those things are handling well into the 1,500 horsepower range.
Oh yeah, all those twin turbo kits that they have, man.
Oh, and they're the R8s and the Hurricanes and the Gallardos are huge. I know in roll racing, and then there's a few guys who do dig racing with them. But, what's it called?
Yeah, like the roll racing events that we started the show with. They do like I've gone to the ones where it's like a test and tune-ish type setup, but like they do like competitions, and it's always some Gallardo or Huracan that wins, like every time.
Yeah, it's like,
and it always has a turbo kit. I think usually underground racing normally is the kit.
Yep.
But
underground, or was it underground? I know Alpha. They're big in GTRs, but they also do some Lambo stuff. And then like Gintani does a lot of TT kits. I don't know if they're like on the race side of things, but it's nuts. But like one of the so you obviously know Cletus, and he's getting that Pro Mod built by CJ Race Cars down in Florida. Full tube frame.
You know what I love is his little baby TRX.
Oh,
it just showed up in my.
Yeah, the little
shrunk.
There's a couple people doing that, and he just put a Elephant in it, or a Elephant's going in it, so it's 1,000 horsepower on that little itty bitty wheelbase.
That would be something that I would, when I was talking about things, I would love a TRX, but I probably will never own a truck because I only need a truck like twice a year. Right. And one of those times a year is when I get a Christmas tree. It would be a lot easier to just throw it in the back, right? So there goes one of the times a year is just a Christmas tree, and the other time is something large from IKEA. Is like like the only other time.
No, I mean, so let me put it this way. So I've kind of gaslit myself into thinking, well, if you need a truck if you need a vehicle for the winter, nobody on YouTube's gonna watch you with like a insert all-wheel drive crossover here. So you got to get a truck. And I mean, you are a far more logical and sane individual than I am with this stuff. Because like, what I was hoping this year would bring is to sort of not finish, because you're never finished with a project car, right? But to get the carbon fiber on the Mustang, start talking about the wrap for it, but get everything part-wise done and on it. And then I was going to shift my attention to a first-gen Raptor with the 6.2, just because I like V8s better, and I have yet to find an EcoBoost that sounds particularly interesting or good.
Probably just in the 4GC, probably.
More than likely, but I can't help but thinking how much better that would have been. Look, I get that that
Right.
car was designed to have as minimal of an engine as humanly possible, like a lot of the like the top level prototypes at the time, right? You look at the Audi, the Porsche 919, the Toyota of the time. They were trying to get as little in the engine bay as humanly possible, so they could have that perfect teardrop, etc. But I mean, imagine the new GT. While we're putting engines where they don't belong, imagine the new GT with a Voodoo, right?
Yeah, just like create the smallest V8 you can find. Like, didn't like an F40 have like a 2 liter V8, like
The
like a
F
Ferrari F40
the
back in the
F40, I
day? It
think
had
it
like
was a
a
2.99 liter
2.9 liter V.
V8 with yeah, but I mean, um, given that that would require them to completely develop a new engine, um, but
Yeah.
like a Voodoo, I mean, I've gone on record, and as you're, uh, you're actually probably a perfect person to bring this up to, just as a part of my insanity. And again, it's going to sound like I'm fanboying, but I promise you, I have thought this over, and it's makes sense at least in my own brain. But I personally, the Voodoo is arguably one of the most useless V8s Ford ever made, and here's why. Yes, is it insane to see an American V8 rev past, I think, what is it, 8,300 RPM? Yeah, that's crazy, right? And, you know, a flat plane crank American V8 that still sounds like an American V8, I think we're learning with the Corvette stuff is like, that's impressive. But a regular Coyote, if you give it the right parts in the head, will go past 8,000 RPM. You could easily make 526 NA horsepower, especially with, you know, the one of the coolest things about the GT350 was it had fabricated, basically short. They were short, they weren't long tube, but they had headers. You know, and like from an engineering perspective, the Voodoo makes so much sense. It's like, hey, we're Ford, but don't think of us as like Chrysler and GM V8s using technology from the 60s. We can make a fully modern engine. But like I said, like a perfect example of it. In its absolute most pissed off, insane, definitely not street derived form, these drag racers who are like Brett LaSalla and Lund Racing and those guys, they're touching briefly, but they are touching 10,000 RPM on a Coyote. And that's on a stock Predator block with sleeves. Like, the engine loves to rev. I think Brett LaSalla, much to my chagrin, said it's basically a Honda engine with duplicated. But, like I said, the Voodoo is a really cool engine, but in order to get it to spin, they have lighter connecting rods, so you can't throw as much power at them. Like, I'll get off my soapbox. And I guess to close things out, as we're getting close to time here, if and it's actually an interesting conversation to have with you just because of your perspective, which is admittedly unexpected, but not in a negative way. Dream car / dream build. What would you go with?
I would probably just cram like some V8 or above. So maybe like a V10 would be different, right? Because there's not many V10 front engine anythings, right? Except for some Audis and BMWs from what 10 years ago, and they had M5.
The
And like
Viper.
I would put something like that in like something you wouldn't expect. Like I had a Gen 5 Camaro as my first car. Um, maybe put like I don't know something like a Lamborghini V. Obviously, if you're just pretending like drag and drop video game, right? Like obviously no understanding of the engineering of what can connect. But like because I like a couple months ago, he still has a really good build series. Like Ryan that Judd
Oh, the
V10
Judd V10, yeah.
in the Supra.
Yeah, the
And that's
Formula
like a
Supra.
miniature V10. Yeah, his Formula Supra. But so like something like that. So obviously you don't want to copy, like you in your dream you don't want to copy what somebody else has done. but like some like baby, because I feel like Lamborghini V10s are a lot smaller than like dropping a Viper V10, which I just in my mind I think is like huge because they put those in some of those Ram trucks, right?
Yep. Well,
There's a Ram V10, and
the
that
funny thing is that the genesis of the Viper V10 was a cast iron block V10 truck engine. And then that's when Lamborghini got involved and they started casting them. Obviously there was some engineering involved, but they started casting those basic engines in aluminum because they had experience with complicated aluminum castings, and that's how the Viper engine ended up being born. But it was, if you trace its lineage back, it was a truck engine first, like kind of like think of like the cast iron LS truck engines versus the aluminum Corvette and Camaro engines. That was it. It's weird because Viper engines are enormous, but it goes back to it. Pushrod engines, there's a reason why you could fit a 7-liter LS in a BMW, right? Because they're so narrow.
yeah.
If you want to hoot, I'll see if I could find the picture. I'll send it to you afterwards. But just someone took a picture overhead of a LS and a Coyote bolted side by side, both bolted to a T56, and for the physical volumetric size. So, but it's I didn't mean to cut you off there, but so Lambo V10 continue. Sorry.
In something, so like could be my like Camaro. I just basically the vibes of like Turk builds. So like he had that Ferrari V8 front engine GT86, and he has that. So like of that same genre. Now obviously I'm not gonna, if I'm dreaming, I'm not copying, right? So like maybe in a Camaro Gen 5 Camaro, because that's been in my history, right? So something like that. For so quick answer, I would say that just putting like a really small V10 now, unless it's like from some X race team like Judd, but like just if we're going to use another OEM, just say say like Lamborghini V10 in like a Camaro, something that nobody would expect, and maybe route the exhaust closer to the front, and instead so it sounds more like a Lamborghini versus sounding more muscly. If you send that all the way back to the back, then it's going to sound more, I don't know, I assume it's going to sound more like a Viper in that sense. Obviously completely different rev ranges, completely again, just copy and paste video game style.
See, I love that because
Forza, just hitting the sliders on Forza. Want to change crate engine? That's all it's
no, I mean, no, I love that because I'm a big fan of putting engines where they don't belong, so to speak. I kind of gravitate to a few types of engines and stuff and it's funny you mentioned sound. So I came off that naturally aspirated 2J when I got my M3, and I was thinking, okay, sound should be relatively similar, if not a little deeper tone because slightly bigger displacement or whatever. And a 2J and an S54 couldn't sound more different from each other. It's all down to, and they're within 200 cc of the same displacement. It's a firing order thing. But it's funny you said V10, maybe a Lambo V10 in a Camaro, and that's why I brought up CJ Race Cars, because they're building a drag and drive 69 Camaro with a Lambo, and they're going to twin turbo it.
These people are stealing my dreams already.
Let me put it to you this way, right? Like, if you have an engine swap, like, there was a lunatic out there, like, you remember, like the classic Volvo wagon, right? Like, it looks like it was designed by an Etch-a-Sketch, the 240s. Someone put a V10 Lambo engine in one of those. So, like,
well, you got room in there though, don't you?
Oh,
like the old school, like.
I mean, there's room for it, but it's like one of those things where, like, I have access to a Lamborghini V10. What am I putting it in? An old Volvo station wagon. Like,
that's you just tell them it's a development vehicle. It's a development. That's where you're testing the engine.
Yeah, what was it? They used
like when they did the C8, the like all the C8s like V8 bits in like the back of like whatever the newest Ute was
The
over
Holden
in
Ute.
Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the development vehicle. So it looked like trash, like it had looked like a really crappy version of a Ute, and
Yeah.
it was lower. It probably looked like something like the Unicorn as a Ute, as but
Oh man, that's another thing. Like I would love to like do something that's streetable but on the Unicorn's level, right? So like a classic American muscle car, all-wheel drive, pissed off V8, more than likely boosted in some fashion, but also be all-wheel drive. Like that, such a cool car, and I love that. Like, I love. I'm not a rotary guy, but like I love that Rob Dahm is basically building the RX-7 version of that with his four rotor. But no, I love the idea. I've always like I've
well, here I'll give you the like if you gave me blank check and I
hell
know
yeah.
it like there's these guys in Latvia that build drift cars, HGK Racing. They build like carbon Kevlar uh, versions of cars. So they have like an E92 carbon Kevlar build, like no engine in it, just like tube frame car ready to go. They did it for the new Supra too. So I'll take that and I'll put this Lamborghini V10 in the
There you
front,
go,
and
man.
then it's just ready to go.
There you go. No, I mean, look, like that stuff. Like I said, channel tech. Like I am constantly thinking of like what engine would make X car cooler. What engine would I put in this? Like if I were to have my like one of the things with my E46 M3, like I mentioned, like no, LS swap would have been an idea, but it's like I wonder if I could fit a Viper V10 in there because push rod engine. It should be narrow. It just becomes a length thing. Like I'm constantly thinking that way. So like I'm right there with you. Like, and the fact that you could get like a tube frame car
Yeah,
and
it's
kind of
funny though, like with cars like your E46 M3. So what? There's probably 25. There's actually V8 versions of that, like super crazy GTR, I think
mm-hmm,
versions of those, right? That
mm-hmm.
and so there's like
Oh
25 they made or something for some race
yeah,
to
because
be able to race, right?
they put the M5's V8 in them for the GT class at both Le Mans and American Le Mans, or for Le Mans over in France. And we've gone over this because um, Greg and one of our other guests, Elliott, like like Greg when he talks about his E92 or whatever the sedan number is. You'd think E92 coupe, E94 sedan would have made the most sense, but no. Um, he goes the first ever production BMW V8, and I love being like, actually, the GTRs like that was that was my vision for my M3, like because it was cheap and because it was a little rough. I wanted to make it put the GTR body kit on it. But like I said, I really want to. There are certain engines I want to play with. That's one of them. I want to do a build with like a pissed off, fully built, turbocharged Hayabusa engine and put that in something small and lightweight because those things can make 400 horsepower. I mean, torque is an issue, but you have a 15,000 RPM red line to play with. Like, sign me up. I
It's funny though, like you're always chasing the next two cylinders, right? So like V6 muscle car guys are always wanting the V8 one, right? We got V8s. You're always wanting like, like in this case, right? I have a V8 M3 and I had a V8 Camaro, and now I'm telling you I want to in something. So they're
you
always
always
chasing
want
the
that
next
thing.
two cylinders.
I mean, it's crazy because like I was constantly thinking about builds while I was in the process of what my original Mustang was the biggest build. Technically second, but it actually got finished, unlike Greg's. So Greg has a 240 that has a little bit of a saga behind it. That was a complete frame off restoration job, and then the guy building it decided he didn't want to do cars anymore and wanted to be a vigilante. And that's not a lie. But my Mustang was the biggest build in shifting lanes And you would think after going through that, I'd be like, yeah, this is good. But I remember thinking while I'm at the dyno, it's like, this is awesome. But you know what else would be awesome, right? Like, because we're car guys and we're constantly thinking of the next thing, and we have ADD, and it's like I'm constantly thinking of what would be a cool engine to put into X car, and it's like, brother, it's you have arguably the best American V8 currently on. Well, Corvette kind of took that crown, but like one of definitely in the top 3. Just put that in something, and it'll be rad, right? Like it's. That is a glimpse into my brain every single day. I'll see a car that I haven't seen in forever. Ooh, that'd be cool if you put this engine in it. You know, dumb stuff like that. But no, man. I really do appreciate you coming on. Before we get going here, just tell everyone where we can find you. Pimp yourself a little bit if you have anything exciting in the works that you want us to be on the lookout for, all that sort of fun stuff. The floor is yours.
Sure. So hit me at Danny Drives on YouTube. Should pop up. I actually just created an Instagram for my channel. That way I could just like put it as the @ in the profile section of Instagram. And right now it's probably just going to hold like highlights of just, you know, reels in my YouTube history. So if you just want to follow that too. But other than that, my main Instagram handle is my name, which is DKORECI. You can that's gonna have car stuff and then travel and stuff. So that's, you know, gonna have a mix on there. But for the most part, you can just find me on YouTube because everything will be directed there.
Fantastic, man. Well, again. Guys, definitely go check Danny's stuff out. I thoroughly enjoyed myself, so and I've watched a few of his stuff, so definitely gonna want to go and check it out. But for this show, that's gonna be a wrap. Again, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can do it again. I know your schedule is a little odd and you have kids and stuff, but
yeah, yeah, we started setting this up. I swear it was like 3 months ago.
Yeah, well,
like we put a date.
Well, when the other two guys came on, that's when I reached out to all y'all, and you were like, I could do it in August, and I was like, that's fine. put it in my calendar. Everything's good. And then like 2 weeks before today, my Google Calendar just took a giant, massive dump on itself, and I lost everything. And Danny's like, "Hey, you be still good for next for the 7th?" I'm like, "Oh yes,
sure,
shit, yes." Oh my god, I'm so sorry. But no, it's been awesome, man. Thanks again to everyone who watched, liked, shared, all that sort of fun stuff. We stick to the socials. Find out next week. But hopefully in 2 weeks we got Greg back, and who knows, maybe another guest. With Keith being on and Danny being on, our I don't even know what I'm trying to say at this moment in time. My brain is goo. Thanks for watching. Go check out Danny's stuff. Really awesome dude, and we'll catch you in the next one.